You ever get fined for something so stupid that you honestly start questioning reality? Because that was me, standing in my driveway holding a bright yellow violation notice, trying to understand how a trash can just cost me $500. It all started on a Monday morning. Trash day, the same routine I've had for years. I wheeled my two bins, one for trash, one for recycling, down the driveway like every responsible adult in America. I placed them neatly at the curb, lids closed, wheels aligned, feeling pretty proud of my suburban precision. Then, like every other week, the garbage truck came, emptied them, and rumbled off. Nothing unusual. Or so I thought. Fast forward to Wednesday. I'm checking my mail, and I see a white envelope with the HOA logo in the corner. I sighed immediately because nothing good ever comes from an HOA envelope. I opened it, and right at the top, in bold red letters, it said, "Violation notice, improper trash can placement. You are hereby fined $500 for failure to adhere to community waste receptacle guidelines. Trash cans were placed 5 inches beyond the designated curb boundary." I literally said out loud, 5 inches? Are you kidding me? I went outside with a tape measure because honestly, I needed to see this. The designated curb boundary was basically an imaginary line between my driveway and the street. I had rolled my bins a few inches past it so the garbage truck could reach them easier, but apparently that tiny distance was now worth half a grand. I called the HOA office right away. "Hi, this is John Miller from Lot 42. I just received a $500 fine for trash can placement. Is this some kind of joke?" The woman on the other end replied in the calmest, most robotic tone I had ever heard. "Sir, according to Section 14B of the HOA Waste Management Policy, trash receptacles must not extend beyond the curb line." I said, "It was 5 inches. The garbage truck literally cannot pick it up unless it's close enough." She said, "I understand your frustration, sir, but the rule exists to maintain uniformity in the neighborhood's visual standards." Visual standards for trash cans. I could feel my blood pressure climbing. "So what am I supposed to do? Hover them in midair next time?" She did not laugh. Of course she did not. Instead, she said, "If you wish to appeal the fine, you may submit a written request to the board within 7 business days." "Fine," I said. "I'll send it today, but I'm not paying $500 because my trash can had stage fright." That night, I sat at my desk, typing up the most sarcastically polite appeal letter I could manage. "Dear HOA Board, thank you for your keen observation regarding the criminal misplacement of my trash bins. I apologize for the egregious 5-inch violation that must have deeply disturbed the community's visual harmony. I assure you the perpetrators have been disciplined. Respectfully, John Miller." I hit print, signed it, and dropped it off at the HOA office the next morning. A few days later, I got a response. "Your appeal has been reviewed and denied. The fine remains in effect." No explanation, no discussion, just denied. At that point, I was done being polite. So I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood, clipboard in hand, channeling my inner HOA inspector. And you would not believe what I found. House after house had their bins sticking out past the curb. Some even had them on the street. One guy had left his out for 2 full days after pickup. Another had a recycling bin tipped over, spilling cardboard everywhere. But guess what? No fines on their mailboxes. That's when it hit me. This was personal. See, a few weeks earlier, I had spoken out at a community meeting about the HOA's decision to raise monthly dues without explanation. I asked a few too many questions about where the extra funds were going. The president, Mr. Curtis, didn't like that one bit. He gave me that tight little fake smile and said, "We appreciate your concern, Mr. Miller. Translation, we will make your life miserable." And here we were. So I decided to make this fine their problem too. The next trash day, I set up my phone on a tripod in my front yard and recorded everything. I placed my bins exactly where the HOA rules said to, flush with the curb, wheels against the sidewalk. Then I filmed the garbage truck rolling up. the mechanical arms struggling to grab the bins because they were too far back. You could literally see the truck driver leaning out the window, motioning for me to move them forward. I smiled at the camera. Sorry, HOA says no. After that, the truck had to skip my house entirely. My bins sat there full. The next day, the HOA sent me another notice, this time for failure to maintain sanitation standards, another $250 fine. I laughed so hard, I nearly dropped my coffee. That was it. I uploaded the video online, titled, HOA says my trash cans are too close. Garbage truck disagrees. Within a few days, it blew up. Thousands of views. People commenting things like, this is peak HOA energy, and 5 inches away from freedom. Even local news reached out for an interview. The HOA tried to act tough, but when they realized the story had gone viral and that the garbage company itself commented backing me up, they quickly changed their tune. Mr. Curtis called me personally. Mr. Miller, perhaps we can reach a resolution here. I said, sure. How about you drop the fines and maybe stop micromanaging my garbage? A long pause, then, that sounds reasonable. The next week, the HOA sent out an updated rule clarification to the entire neighborhood. Trash receptacles may extend slightly beyond the curb line to facilitate waste collection. Yeah, no kidding. I guess you could say I won, but honestly, it was never about the $500. It was about proving that sometimes these HOA folks forget they're supposed to serve the community, not control it. And if it took 5 inches of rebellion to remind them of that, totally worth it. After my little video went viral, I honestly thought the HOA would try to ignore it, pretend it never happened, bury it under the rug like they always do. But oh no, this thing took on a life of its own. By the end of the week, my video had crossed 100,000 views. Local news picked it up, and suddenly people from all over the country were in my comments, sharing their own ridiculous HOA stories. I even got an email from a reporter who said, "We would love to feature your story on our evening segment, the HOA trash can scandal." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Trash can scandal. That was now a thing. But here's where it got really fun. Neighbors started showing up at my house, not to complain, but to thank me. One lady down the street said, "John, I have lived here 15 years, and they fined me once because my grass was too green." I am not even kidding. Too green. I am so glad you are standing up to them. Another guy said, "Bruh, they once sent me a warning because my garden hose was visible from the street." A hose! You are my hero! It was like I had accidentally become the HOA rebellion leader. Then, one night, I got a message on the neighborhood Facebook page from Mr. Curtis himself, the HOA president. Quote, "Mr. Miller, your video has caused unnecessary distress within the community. Please remove it immediately to prevent further misinformation." Right. Unnecessary distress. I replied publicly, of course. "Sure, I will remove the video as soon as you refund my $500 fine and apologize for the 5-inch crime of the century." The post blew up with laughing emojis. That same night, I noticed something weird. The HOA office lights were still on at 10 p.m. I drove by and saw Mr. Curtis and 2 other board members pacing around inside, clearly stressed out. Guess that TV interview hit harder than expected. 2 days later, they called for an emergency community meeting. I went, obviously. The room was packed. You could feel the tension. Mr. Curtis stood at the front, sweating through his tie, trying to control the room like nothing had happened. "Residents," he began, adjusting his glasses, "we would like to remind everyone that our trash receptacle policy is in place to ensure a clean, uniform community appearance." A voice from the back interrupted. "Then why did you fine John for doing what all of us do every week?" People started murmuring. Then another voice said, "Yeah, I measured my bins too. Mine stick out 7 inches. Mr. Curtis looked like someone had just unplugged his brain. He stammered, "That is not the point." "Oh, I think it is the point," I said, standing up. Because if you're going to enforce rules, maybe you should start with fairness, or do the rules only apply to people who ask questions at meetings? The room erupted in applause. Curtis's face turned red. "Mr. Miller, you are out of order." I smiled. "So is your entire policy manual." That was when I knew the crowd was on my side. The board members started whispering to each other, clearly panicking. You could see they had lost control of the narrative. After the meeting, people came up to me one after another, shaking my hand, thanking me for standing up. Some even started talking about organizing a petition to vote Curtis out. By the weekend, it was everywhere. Hashtag TrashCanGate was trending locally. Someone even made a meme with Curtis's face photoshopped onto a garbage bin that said, "Curb Enforcement Unit." I had to admit, it was hilarious. But then came the best part. The Waste Management Company, the actual garbage truck company, posted an official statement online saying, "For the record, our collection process requires bins to be placed slightly beyond the curb. Any HOA policy preventing that interferes with proper service." Boom. Case closed. That statement spread like wildfire. HOA members started flooding Curtis's inbox demanding answers. Within 3 days, the board called for a special meeting. This time, the tone was completely different. Curtis looked exhausted, and his usual smug grin was gone. He cleared his throat and said, "After careful review and consultation with the Waste Collection Service, the HOA board has decided to rescind the fine issued to Mr. Miller. Additionally, Section 14B will be amended to reflect updated guidelines." The room cheered. People clapped. Someone even yelled, "Justice for the trash cans." I just sat there smiling. Then Curtis added, "Furthermore, Mr. Miller, we would appreciate if you could take down your online video to help restore community peace." I said, "Oh, it's already down." He looked relieved. Then I added, "Kidding, it has 1 million views now. You're welcome for the publicity." The laughter that followed could have powered the entire neighborhood. He didn't say another word. After that final meeting, things around the neighborhood started to shift. It was subtle at first. Fewer nasty notices, more friendly waves, and fewer people pretending not to see me when I walked my dog. Apparently, word spread faster than garbage day. Within a week, I started getting these quiet nods from neighbors. You know, that "you did what we all wanted to do" look. Even old Mrs. Parker, the one who used to glare at me for leaving my Christmas lights up too long, started smiling. But the best part? The HOA board started acting polite, like unnaturally polite. They sent out an email that read, "Effective immediately, residents will receive a courtesy warning before any fine is issued for minor infractions." Minor infractions. That was their fancy way of saying trash cans. It was hilarious, but also kind of satisfying. A few days later, I got a knock at my door. It was Curtis. Yep, that Curtis. He stood there awkwardly, holding a clipboard, not to fine me this time, but to hand me a refund check. "Mr. Miller," he said stiffly, "the board has agreed to reimburse your fine in full." I took the check, smiled, and said, "Wow, you even printed it on official HOA paper. I might frame this." He did not laugh. I did. Then he said, "Look, I will admit this whole thing got out of hand. We were only trying to maintain community standards." I replied, "Well, maybe next time start with community before standards." He sighed, clearly done with me, then walked off without another word. The next morning, I went out front to roll my trash bins to the curb, and for the first time ever, I felt proud doing it, like I had just earned that curb space. Then I noticed something. Every single house on my street had their trash cans perfectly lined up, exactly where mine had been, 5 inches beyond the curb. It was like silent protest day, and it did not stop there. People started making jokes about it. Someone printed t-shirts that said 5 inches of freedom. Another guy spray painted his bin, tastefully, with the words "Curb Hero." It became our little neighborhood joke, a symbol that we were finally standing up to nonsense. Later that month, I was out front washing my truck when a new family drove by, slowed down, and waved. The dad leaned out the window and said, "Hey, are you the trash can guy?" I laughed. "That is me." He said, "Legend," and drove off. I couldn't help but feel proud. Not because I had gone viral, though that part was fun, but because for once, the HOA realized that the people paying the dues actually had a voice. And here's the cherry on top. A month later, the HOA held its annual election. Curtis didn't run again. Instead, the new president was a guy named Dan, one of the same neighbors who had cheered during the meeting. Dan stopped by a few days after winning and said, "Hey man, I just wanted to say thanks. You kind of woke everyone up." I shrugged and said, "I just wanted to put my trash out without feeling like a criminal." He grinned and said, "That's how revolutions start." Now our neighborhood feels lighter. People actually talk, laugh, and, believe it or not, help each other out. The HOA is still around, but it finally acts like a community group, not a mini government. And as for me, I framed that refund check right above my desk. Every time I look at it, I remember the $500 lesson that changed everything. Sometimes it doesn't take a protest or a lawyer to make a difference. Sometimes all it takes is a trash can, a camera, and 5 stubborn inches of freedom.